You got to prepare for all of that. You just don't want to show up unprepared because they will not accept your vehicle, and that will be a big waste of time. It's not a short process. You have to check in, you got to show all your documents, you got to fill out some paperwork, they got to inspect your vehicle. It's not a super quick process, and if it's big, what's the cost? And people often ask, what's the best way to ship your car in between the islands? And the short answer is there's really only two ways. So there really isn't a best way, because it's pretty much the same regardless of which company you use. And the two companies are basically Brothers and Matson. And you have to put your car on a barge, and then the barge has to sail from island to island and then get offloaded on the other side and picked up. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the process on how that works. I've done it several times, and so it's not super complicated, but it's not super convenient either. And so some things that you want to think about before starting the process is, one, to schedule your shipment in advance, because it can take some time based on the schedule of when the barges sail. They don't sail every single day. And so you want to make sure that you plan in advance. If you need your car on another island by a certain date, you may have to back plan a week or two in advance to make sure that you have the availability, or the ship has the availability to ship your vehicle in between the islands. And so you got to start thinking about that. You can call ahead. There's forms that you can fill out online and check what the schedules are and make sure that there is room to put your vehicle on. So once you get that all set up and you have a date figured out and you have a schedule figured out, is you do have to prepare your vehicle. You can't just like show up and then throw your vehicle on the barge. You do have to have it at a quarter tank of gas. You got to make sure there's nothing inside of it, so you can't ship all of your stuff inside of your car. And you have to make sure that it's clean. If it's excessively dirty, they won't accept it, because they don't want invasive species and things like that going in between the islands in a really muddy or dirty vehicle. So you got to prepare your car, and then you also have to gather the necessary documents. You have to have your registration, insurance, a valid ID. And in some cases, if you're not the registered owner of the vehicle, you're going to need to have an notarized authorization signed by the registered owner of the vehicle in order to be able to sign it over to the shipping company and put it on the boat. So you got to prepare for all of that. You just don't want to show up unprepared, because they will not accept your vehicle, and that will be a big waste of time. And then once all of that is done, you have to drop it off at the port. And there's two on the Big Island. There's basically one on Maui, one on Oahu, and one on Kauai. So you don't have a ton of options, but if you're on the Big Island, you want to pick the one that's closer to you, either Kauai High or Hilo. And there's going to be a drop-off time that they're going to give you. You have to show up. Plan on it taking at least an hour. It's not a short process. You have to check in, you got to show all your documents, you got to fill out some paperwork, they got to inspect your vehicle. It's not a super quick process. And if it's busy and there's a lot of people in front of you in line, you have to wait for all of them. And there's not necessarily a lot of workers that are doing that and processing the vehicles on the intake side of it. So plan at least an hour, could take longer. I've definitely been there waiting for a while in the past. And then once all of that is done, you basically walk away, and it's usually 3 or 4 days later is when you can pick it up on the other side, because depending on when you drop it off and when the ship sails, it's usually an overnight or a day and a half to get to the other island, and then they have to offload it and prepare the vehicles for pickup. So then you got to prepare your logistics to get to the other side of the pickup plan and schedule pickup and know when that time is. And also on the pickup side of it, plan probably for an hour at least, because you do have to fill out paperwork and re-inspect the vehicle and then take the vehicle back, and then you're done basically at that point. So that's the quick process on how it works, and some tips on preparing to ship your vehicle inter-island. And of course, the big question is always, what's the cost? And that is based on the size and type of your vehicle. It varies, so you want to check with the shipping company based on your vehicle weight, how much it's going to cost. And then you also want to look at what the fuel surcharges are doing, because that can affect the cost of shipping based on what fuel is doing. So they charge you a surcharge based upon fuel, and so the price varies. I can tell you, I did a Tesla Model 3 recently and a Model Y, and it was over $700 to ship it one way. So it's extremely expensive. And if you want to go round trip, I mean, you're talking, $1,500 round trip. So it's not cheap, and that's just for a regular car. If you have a big truck, it's going to be more. Best to call, get a quote, and see based on your specific vehicle size what the costs are going to be. But in the end, it's not a super convenient or simple process. It's definitely not cheap, but the key is to just prepare ahead of time, have a plan, make sure you check all of your boxes when it comes to all of the processes that are necessary so you can do it in the smoothest manner possible. But that's a quick rundown on how to ship your vehicle in our island. If you have any questions, you can always reach out, Dylan@buybigisland.com, or there is a link in the comments below to book a meeting with me. Happy to discuss this or any of your real estate plans here in Hawaii. Thanks for watching. See you guys next week. Aloha.